In chapter 3, Parabellum, there's a lot more knife work and a lot more group work. In chapter 2, in the fighting, it was groups, but it was always one-on-one. In Parabellum, part of the way that we've expanded is it's multiple people, more multiple people, and that's another kind of expression of the action. And also, John kind of gets overwhelmed in chapter 3. He's not heroic all the time. Right. He gets beat up. And that's another kind of skill, to take the reactions, It's one thing to hit somebody, it's another thing to get hit, and that's a different part of the dance. Yeah, so we had this vision for John Wick to go to the desert. And Chad was like, that sounds great. Where? And so Chad started to go on a tour and looking for locations. And he eventually, fell in love with the Sahara. And we had the chance to go to Morocco, which was amazing. And I'd never been to the desert. I'd never been to the Sahara. I'd been to the desert, but I just hadn't been to the Sahara. And to go there, what a magical, amazing, profound place. So for me to be in a John Wick suit, playing John Wick, walking in those sand dunes, was a moment of my life. When we were finishing chapter 2, I was like, okay, the park, let's get John on a horse. And Chad was like, yes. And then as we were developing chapter 3, Parabellum, Chad was like, time to train on a horse. And I was like, yes. I've had the opportunity to train for riding on previous films. I did it for Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh. I worked on it with Little Buddha, with Bernardo Bertolucci. So I've gone through that training. That's like riding, straight, let's do a walk, control and a canter. This one was like, yeah, you've got to get off the saddle, go sideways, and hold on to the neck or something, and then shoot somebody. And that was next level. It's been a real honor, and I'm grateful for the audience that has given me and Chad Stahelski and the opportunity, and everyone involved, the opportunity to continue to explore the world of John Wick. It's a great pleasure. I can just tell you it's really fun to work on John Wick.
I think it's probably, like he said, probably the hardest 6-7 months I think I've experienced in my professional life, for sure. I'd never worked harder for anything, and I kept going because I would just not quit. That was not something that was even an option, and luckily for me, it wasn't an option for Chad either. So I got through that, and I learned judo, jiu-jitsu, gun fu, hand-foot combat, things that just not only are they needed for this movie, but they will serve me in life. And that was another reason, for being there. And now I think I have the bug, like I just want to keep going and going and going and going. I think she is someone who, like John, has done the same job that he's done. She's been revered that way. We find her, she's now sort of not in the game anymore like she used to be. She's been promoted to a higher level, and she's sitting, a bit above it all in some ways as well. But because of John, she gets lured back into the game because of those coins. When you get a coin, when you get the call, you have to answer. It's their code of ethics, and so she has to do the very thing she doesn't really want to get, back involved with. But her daughter is also at stake. So I think Sophia brings a little bit of heart to the movie, a little bit of heart and soul. She represents something real and tangible for, you know, what she's fighting for. I think sometimes with the rest of the movies, you don't know who all the people are and you're not sure what they're fighting for. It's all so secret and it's so mysterious and it's like an opera in many ways. But Sophia comes in and I think she's a bit grounding because I think you really do see her as real and you do see that she's fighting for something that she cares about. It's stellar. I mean, you don't get to show up and do what he does without having a stellar work ethic. He's determined, he's relentless in his pursuit, he's talented in this area, and he's fearless. He will try and do anything, and he won't stop until he gets it right. These dogs, I became like their dog trainer with the trainers. I would spend 4 days a week out there with the dogs, 2-3 hours a day, and I would just go through the drills with them just like the trainers. As the trainers were learning who they were, I was learning who they were. As they were putting them through drills and teaching them, I was doing the same thing. So that at the end of the day, I could command them just like the trainers could command them. And it was a real relationship that was built, and there were 5 of them. 5 different dogs that, you know, played different. 2 in the movie, but it took 5 dogs to play 2 guys. And it was a relationship and a really lovely one. I'm an animal person. I have 2 dogs myself, so that was the sweetest part of my day, to go and hang out with the dogs. They're going to love what they love about the first 2. It's action, action, all action. You're going to see some new things that they've never seen before. We've got some dogs that fight almost like men, which we've never seen before. And you still have that, you know, mysterious John Wick character. Keanu is so deep, and he's able to play that kind of character. There's that sweet story that's carried on with his dogs that sort of he and my character, Sophia, sort of have a moment where that becomes real again and they connect on that level. And I think you leave feeling like, okay, can't wait for 4.
Keanu is absolutely magnetic as this character. You want to root for John Wick no matter what, no matter how dire the circumstances become, you just want him to get out of it. And it's, I think, partially because he's so polite and he is so righteous in his rage and anger about the killing of his dog. There's a quality to Keanu that is something that you can't really define. Coupled with his years of experience as an actor, and you know, both his sensitivity and his intelligence, that really sort of lend itself to this character. I mean, it's kind of, it's not so obvious, but John Wick is actually a very sensitive individual. And I think Chad is really, you know, unique in that he's taken all of his experience as a stunt performer, as a coordinator, as a second unit director, and, you know, given himself permission to go beyond those, you know, titles or those boundaries or restrictions, if you will. I mean, he's really, when you think about the sort of the third act of John Wick 2, the climax inside the staircase, that's kind of like an Escher painting. You think about what was his thought process to get to that. It's really impressive. I mean, he's just really exceptional. People will love the action, obviously. I mean, that's one of the great things about the movies themselves, is that there's all this kind of hyper action that's just the result of, you know, Chad's experience as a stuntman, as a coordinator, as an artist, as an athlete, as a guy who's looking to try and do something different and do something that actually makes you sit up and go, how did they do that?
You get to know more about Lawrence Fishburne's character, you get to know more about Winston, my character, and what is this world about? But you must never know too much, otherwise you give too much away. And also you have the added presence this time of, you know, the gorgeous Halle Berry, who comes as another member, who runs another hotel. Not me this time. It's a good movie. The movie's directed again by Chad Stahelski, who has a real take on this series. I mean, I'm glad he's directed all three, which means there's an ongoing natural feel to it, how it grows. Just the films get bigger each time, which they should. You know, and the world gets more interesting, and Chad works closely with the writers and the same cinematographer, Dan, who's done a great job on all of them, and the films look fantastic. And I think one of the great thing about Chad is that he is an ex-martial artist. He knows how to shoot that action, which is what makes the movie work, that it's not jump cutting every time. It's got its own natural elegance and beauty. Like any movie, what any good movie should do is that you sit down and you look at a screen for 2 hours and you come away with it and you go back into real life. But it takes you somewhere else for 2 hours. And if it's good, if it works, whatever it be it a comedy, be it a drama, be it a, you know, social issue, whatever. If it takes you away and you relate to it for that time, that's the object of what movies are about. And that's what John Wick does.
You know, this character I play, the adjudicator, is, you know, a new character in the third installment. So I was getting to join a world that had already been created, but my character helps the audience discover a little bit more about the world, which I think was a really exciting opportunity for me as an actor. The adjudicator has a little bit of help from a character called Zero, played by Dacascos, who was so much fun to work with. He's so talented and hardworking and also really fun. It was really incredible to play scenes with him. And both Zero and the adjudicator are, you know, they're all business. They're there to get in, do what they need to do, and get out. And Zero, you know, I think both Zero and the adjudicator have a little bit of a quirkiness to them, and I think it just adds a really fun layer to this world. The dynamic between Winston and the adjudicator was particularly fun to play. You know, the adjudicator is there on the page. I feel like the way they are written, they are intimidating. They are not easily thrown by other people, and they know the power that they carry. They know how to carry it into a room, and they're not intimidated by Winston, and so you won't see that in the scenes between the adjudicator and Winston. And I think part of the reason the adjudicator is so fun is that you see these characters like Winston, like John Wick, even Sharon, who you think, oh, nobody could mess with them. And then here comes this character, and they're all a little bit like, whoa, I don't know how to deal with this. And I think audiences will really love it, and it was really fun to play that character. And, you know, the direction coming from Chad was super helpful. I mean, we crafted, you know, that character together. Keanu is the perfect John Wick because he is John Wick. I feel like, having met Keanu as a person, he is so generous and vulnerable, but also strong. I mean, he really is a multidimensional human being, and he brings that to John Wick. John Wick is also, one of the things I love about John Wick is how vulnerable he is, how in touch with his emotions that he is. It is because he loved his wife and he loved this dog that he seeks revenge. And I think there's something really, really powerful about that. And also Keanu is, he's doing 99.9% of his own stunts, which is an incredibly inspiring thing to be around. Just getting to watch him work was extraordinary.
John Wick was very appealing to me because I love dogs, and so I immediately identified with John Wick and his passion for this puppy. And it seemed to me very much rooted in human emotion, and I was immediately sympathetic with the hero, and I liked the way it looked a lot. And then the action kind of lifts you up and takes you on a ride. I play the director. I think I probably, in my own time, worked my way up through the assassin escalator, the assassin staircase. And now I pretty much run this place. He comes to me because he's made a transgression. He's taken out a member of the High Table, which is the International Guild of Assassins. So he comes to me for an escape. He needs a way out, and of course, there is no way out. Somebody has to pay. There's not a dull moment on screen. I think that's what it is, and I think it's a movie also that you can enjoy yourself. You could, being the proper gentleman that you are, you can bring your girlfriend, have a good evening, have some laughs, see some astounding stunts, and have a really good time.
When I decided to do the first movie, it never occurred to me that it would turn into this kind of juggernaut franchise. I mean, I thought it was going to be cool, but even then, I didn't know. I didn't know how it was going to look. I just knew that the script was really cool, and for me, it was so much about the role, because it's the kind of role that I never get to play. What really attracted me to the role, I mean, I'm not sure what to say other than that it was just so different from anything that I usually get a chance to do. The kind of the character of Alfred, which is really, I kind of see him that way. I mean, the other character, and I know I've said this before, that I thought a lot about when I was preparing for the role initially, was Hector Alessandro's character in Pretty Woman. Ian's a lot of fun, and he's such a great actor. And it's funny because I've been such a fan of his for so long that when I first met him, I was starstruck. So I was a little weird, and he said, "Nice to meet you," and I was kind of, and he gave me this look like, "Why are you acting so weird? What, you got having a seizure? What's going on?" And then I realized, I just have to calm down.
Zero, at least in his mind, is, though he loves John, he feels like he's on par with John because he loves everything Mr. Wick is about. His style, his grace, his class, his efficiency, how brutal and violent he is, but still a gentleman. He's the biggest fanboy of John Wick there is, probably learned from him through osmosis and hearing stories, and feels like if anyone is able to take out John, it is he himself, Zero. And there's a certain honor to that. I mean, there's an honor in going after John. Nobody else in his mind is worthy of that. Nobody else loves John Wick more than Zero. So it should be Zero who takes John Wick out. Well, I was geeking out because when Chad was working with Keanu on some of the moves, he was explaining this one throw to Keanu, and Keanu was not sure what he meant. So Chad goes over and does it with the stuntman. And I'm like, what? Right? I'd never seen a director go over and do the move just flawlessly. And it was, I don't know how to do the move. It was this jump on the waist, twist, and then you twirl the guy to the ground. And so this is our director doing the move, and it was great. And you know, I'm like, whoa, in my head, I'm just like, oh, that's really good. and then he's talking to Keanu, and he wants Keanu to try it. And apparently Keanu had never done it before. Then Keanu gets up, and just the fact that he's going over just to try it in front of everybody, right? And he goes over and he jumps up and he locks his legs around the hips and then he does a twist and the guy goes flying. I'm like, are you kidding me? First the director does it flawlessly and then our lead actor. It was great. It's obvious, not just with the gun work, but with the actual martial arts moves, that Keanu Reeves trained his butt off. And having a director like Chad, who is a martial artist, a real, talented, disciplined martial artist himself, of course, is a huge advantage because he knows the moves himself. He knows best how to capture it on camera. And when you have that with an incredible team like 8711 Action Design and hardworking actors, you get John Wick.
I'm part of the kind of Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne. I'm part of his homeless empire of agents who operate in the city. As I don't know if you could tell, I am currently dressed as a homeless character. You might have thought I was just wearing my normal clothes because I do, a lot of people know, wear a trash bag as a shawl pretty often for breathability sake, you know. As the Bowery King explains in the second movie, is nobody looks at the homeless. The homeless are invisible. And so they are allowed to operate and move within the city unnoticed or, you know, not being kind of tracked at all. And so, you know, this location we're in right now is kind of the headquarters of a kind of pretty enormous operation of homeless people that are, you know, dealing in cash, there's drugs, there's guns, there's all sorts of, there's an infrastructure, like all the worlds in the John Wick universe, there's an infrastructure to this that you would find surprising. I've never read a script that was so wonderfully illustrated on the page, the action that was going to be in the movie, and making that understandable. But then to watch him kind of bring it to life is terrific. You know, like, I come from a comedy background, you know what I mean? So we're very infrequently are we doing, you know, any kind of interesting camera moves that are helping understand both character and setting a visual tone, and, you know, like, he's doing stuff, he's operating on levels that are pretty fantastic to just kind of watch and watch him do. And then he's also, similarly to Keanu and everybody here, like, lovely to talk to in between, in terms of, like, you know, for me, somebody who I'm like, how come you're doing this or that this way? And he'll be like, well, here's why.
It's amazing to come and be doing a scene with Keanu. He's a legend, you know. And it's like I was really kind of letting that in as I was coming over, and everybody was like, oh my God, you're going to do a film with Keanu. And how he's held in everybody's hearts in terms of, he's like carried this, he's been in such kind of classic movies, and is firmly kind of embedded there in this psyche as being the guy to lead them, and he does it so well. He has something that nobody else does.
Chad Stahelski, yeah, it's been really great. He certainly gives the impression that he looks like he knows what he's doing, and he's got it under control, and it's such an action-based movie, and Chad really knows his stuff in that whole area, so you feel very safe. And he gives me some good acting tips as well. No, very good. He's a good guy, and he keeps everybody kind of on their toes.